Yeah, that was a great episode. It was definitely out of our wheelhouse, but I love Neeka, and I think she's such a great storyteller and has such a heart. And we have a history, and we just got into a little bit of that. But I really wanted her to meet you guys, and for listeners to understand how important community is and their heartbeat. And so, yeah.
What an incredible story she's got. I mean, this idea of helping people kind of reconnect with their personal family histories through, recreating these recipes. That's really incredible. I really love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and she's doing it in such a reverse direction. So, when you think of, obviously you can think of shows like Chef's Table or something like that, or even, I'm a huge fan of, Jon Favreau's, not the chef show, but the documentary series where he goes around with people and they share, they cook for each other essentially, and like the film crews in and all that. But she's doing it in a reciprocal way where it's like, she's helping embellish other people's stories and recipes and helping finding and formulate that for an individual's life. And I think that's so unique. It's not just presenting it to people, it's helping them present it back to the world and themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I love about people? Their hearts. And talking about movies. Welcome to the Heartbeat Film Podcast. This podcast is all about getting to know the hearts of the people who make the art we love. I'm Jan.
I'm Hayram. And I'm Chris. Thanks to everybody who's joining us. Let's start the show.
Ho, ho, ho! Welcome to the Christmas episode of the Heartbeat Film Podcast. I'm here with my great friends Chris, Hayram, and our producer Courtney. Super excited about this episode. We have a great guest. Her name is Neeka DeGraw, who's a really good friend of mine, and I just can't wait to get into talking about what we're going to talk about.
Nice job, Jan.
That was fantastic.
That was really
Man,
good.
you really popped
Really
off.
good.
I did not see that coming.
That's right.
I did not see it.
Thank you.
That was our hands down best intro we've had.
Easily.
Period.
Consider us introed.
The best.
Hey, Courtney, what do you think?
I thought it was absolutely amazing. Very great.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
10 out of 10.
Was it?
And,
Oh,
and you guys did so good encouraging her with it too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't. That was. I felt like I had nothing to do with that. I don't take credit. That was.
No, absolutely.
That was just the gift of the intro. I feel
But
like we
was it
struck
because
some-
I did a
No,
hard?
because you guys usually rag on her. That's all I'm saying. So you guys really encourage.
Oh well, no. This. We rag on
you
anything
guys,
that doesn't.
That was really good.
You earned all the praise. That's
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
earned the praise. It wasn't made up.
Is it because I
You
did?
earned that too, though.
Is it because I did a hard hoe? Like I started with a hard hoe, like
Started
hoe,
with a hard
hoe,
hoe.
hoe.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the way to start every conversation. You start with a hard hoe. At least that's how we do it in Atlanta.
Yeah. ATL hoe, ATL hoe. Listen, I would get into so much trouble if I was in my dad's house and started yelling ATL ho, because even at this age, my dad does not let me say any curse words in front of him or in the house.
Man,
Silence. But I'm just saying, he's
I can respect it.
Mine
Yeah.
either. So don't feel left out.
Oh.
I try not to curse in front of my parents. I don't know what they would say. I don't think they'd say anything. But I curse a lot and I try to calm it down.
We're
Yeah.
a cursing ass household in my house.
That's funny. You guys probably don't know this, but Chris and Chris's mom and grandma came to my house a couple of summers ago.
That's true.
And my mom loves to throw parties. My dad loves to barbecue. And we have this pool and this pond and la 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 la. And his mom and grandma came over. They barbecued. They went downstairs and played cards. And I was just sitting there like the odd duck out, just like, but I'm used to it because I don't really do that kind of stuff.
The
But
best part was my grandmother. She was throwing some drinks back, man.
Yes.
She was getting loose. She had a good old time.
yeah. Oh man. I am so excited about this time of year. Christmas is my favorite time of year. I love Christmas carols. I love hot chocolate. I love loving people and giving presents and all of the things that Christmas represents. Yeah. So I actually wanted to talk to you guys about what are some of your favorite Christmas movies, because that's a big time of year to get together with people and talk and watch movies, I think, or by yourself, I guess.
Yeah. What do you got here?
I think the list is long. I think for me, top 3 in this order of the ones I try watch every year. I don't know if I can pin it to a favorite.
Right.
I a few years ago fell in love with Klaus, right? I think that's phenomenal animation.
Okay.
Klaus? Wait. Klaus or Claus?
It's Claus, but if you watch the movie, it's Klaus.
Oh, okay.
It is very good. I forgot.
Fair enough.
I
So
forgot about that one.
Oh, it's so
very
good. Such good storytelling. And then I really love Elf, obviously. Big fan of Jon Favreau. Love what he executed with that and his whole team in Vancouver. And then It's a Wonderful Life is one that I religiously watch year over year. One of my all-time favorites.
That's a really good one.
I love the story behind it, which I brought it up multiple times. So if you guys remember me mentioning, and I got to shout out this documentary every time we have a podcast episode, Five Came Back, which is it's about the filmmakers that volunteer to fight back the propaganda of Hitler's kind of regime and what the Nazi Party was doing with film.
Yeah.
And so when they saw the power of that, there was a few producers and like 5 directors distinctly that all the World War II footage that we have, it was part of those directors and their team. And when they came back, Hollywood had like left them, right? They kind of like, they didn't have a place. And then at the same time, none of those directors wanted to make what Hollywood was making. They felt it was all cheesy and kind of farce and fake. And like they had just gone through war. And so they felt there was much deeper stories to tell and much more vivid material. And so the 5 of them, I'm not sure if it was 5, maybe it was 3 of them that formed Liberty Bell Films, which was their first film was It's a Wonderful Life. And so you see the reflections of the weight that they were feeling in the films that they wanted to make in that film, whether, you know, the brother that went to war and him struggling with, you know, the financial, all that different stuff, the whole love story that's intertwined with that. And it wasn't a financial success, right? It actually, I think another company ended up buying Liberty Bell, and then they all kind of had to go their separate ways. But they're kind of the guys that inspired Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola and all that stuff. And those guys are the ones that are being interviewed in that documentary. Nice. So I love it. Plus, it was filmed not far from where I grew up, about maybe 40 minutes from where I grew up.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, you know, Neeka's from New York. So that's the other great thing that all of you guys have in common. Neeka is from the Catskills. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I love that.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I have a totally different top 3. I've never actually seen A Wonderful Life.
What?
It's like bits and pieces.
Oh no, that's it. Pause the podcast. We're all going to watch it right now.
I'll stop it right now. Yeah, I've never seen it. It's just like it's one of those movies that's like always just kind of in the zeitgeist. So I just never was particularly compelled to watch it. I always was a little bit more compelled by what I would consider more kind of adult fare, if you will. So like my top 3 are probably National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation,
yes,
with Chevy Chase and
good one.
Beverly D'Angelo. The movie is hilarious. Every time it's on, I will stop whatever I'm doing and watch it. It's so good. The music is great. It's like iconic.
Yeah.
The squirrel in the tree, amazing. And then probably Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Yes.
Is another one that is a perennial favorite for me.
Yeah.
Another, amazing comedy. Very kind of irreverent and offbeat, which I really loved. And then Home Alone. Home Alone is also always a staple in my heart.
Home Alone.
Yeah.
That's
not your typical kids movie, just really obviously an iconic performance from Macaulay Culkin. Still lives up to this day. It's super fun, really, really funny. And just like it's got heart, that kind of Chris Columbus, John Hughes kind of style that I think still kind of holds up to this day.
Chris, have you watched the movies that made us one on Home Alone?
No, I haven't seen that series yet.
It's so worth watching.
Yeah.
Worth watching.
Yeah, that's on the list for sure. Absolutely. What about yours, Jan?
Well, I want to say a multitude of movies, but there's really only one, and It's a Wonderful Life. Now, I will say that my favorite thing to do back in the day, and I still try and do it now, is watch themed episodes of television shows. So my favorite thing about TV back in the day was that you could watch the fall, people, starting rekindling love, going to school, Halloween episode, Thanksgiving episode, Christmas episode, Valentine's episode. It always made me feel like I was like home and a part of like this world. It always made me feel really good. So It's a Wonderful Life is definitely one of my favorites, but it was always the themed Christmas episodes of my favorite shows that I loved.
Nice.
So what shows are you those episodes from?
Felicity, okay? Dawson's Creek.
Oh.
Like we're going, because they don't really do that anymore. You know what I mean? Law and Order SVU. Sometimes they have any show that has like a holiday. Cold Case. That was a good show back in the day.
A little Christmas murder action.
Yes.
Christmas
Yes.
strikes again.
I don't know. I just feel like, well, first of all, like I will say again, I love you all very much. I just feel like television, movies, it all, like, when they bring us into a world that matches our real world, in a sense, it makes you feel like you're a part of something different or bigger, at least for me, you know? So it's like, I don't know, television has really shaped me. Like, so I just applied for a television director's program with NBC, and I feel like Chris did too, maybe?
I did, yeah.
Good. I was going to text you to make sure you did it. But, and you have to write an essay. And in our essay, we had to write, what background do you have culturally, especially, that makes you a good fit for this program? And so every year in my essay, but it's the truth. Every year in my essay, I just write, on this part of my essay, I wrote, I know what it's like to understand the beauty of my skin and culture by growing up in Atlanta, but I also know what it's like to go to an HBCU called Hillman College, as well as which, guys, is a show that had an all-black cast that was just phenomenal in terms of a different world. And I said, but I also know what it's like to be a rich white girl going to school in Beverly Hills 90210, you know? And I think that television has, and stories, gives you the ability to be a part of other people's worlds. But television shaped me. Like, what I learned about friendship, what I learned about dating, what I learned about all of these things, I learned from television, which is good and bad. Right. But yeah, I don't know. That's a long answer. Yeah. And
Chris,
I think, go ahead.
I was going to ask if Chris has the same sentiment. Do you feel like TV shows and television and movies have shaped you?
100%. Absolutely. I feel like specifically my sense of humor were shaped by two shows in particular, The Simpsons and Ren and Stimpy. Like those, like the Ren and Stimpy kind of absurdist comedy that was kind of like gross out at the same time, but very visceral, which I really, really dug. And then The Simpsons is, it always towed that line between really highbrow and really lowbrow at the same time. Like, I mean, a lot of the writers on that show were Hale and Princeton and Harvard, lit graduates. Conan O'Brien wrote on that show. I mean, it was incredible how much information, how many references, allusions to films, novels, poetry that they jammed into every episode of that show, in a way that if you were somebody who was up on those, some of that, cultural references, then it added another layer of enjoyment to it. But even if you weren't, you know what I mean? Like, I was watching it at 10 years old, laughing my ass off. And then when I would rewatch those episodes 10 years later, or even today, I noticed new things that, new references that I didn't pick up on then, that really feed into how I like to tell stories in layers and utilize all the references of things that I've enjoyed from other types of media over the course of my life and career. So yeah, those two shows definitely shaped me for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Hayram?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think my whole identity is shaped by films. I mean, I still go back to we've talked about it before, Will Smith, like just everything that he was as a character, like I tried to imitate at a younger age. And then I think I grew up kind of sheltered, right? Like protected from the world. And so my window into the world was movies, and my window into courage and bravery. And still today, like I lean on things that incite what I'm interested in, right? I think we pick out stories and narratives and movies that compel us, in our development, but also to try and churn more, right? So I watch a lot of entrepreneur stuff, and then even kind of going back and studying the movies that I know shaped me, and trying to figure out why is it that those movies were so impactful. You know, like when we think of like, so one that I recently read the script to and did a script map to and then rewatched that I hadn't seen in years was Gladiator. Like, and I couldn't remember why it was so impactful and why everyone loved it so much. I mean, why is it such a great story, and why is it's still a vengeance narrative, right? But then there's such higher elements to it, you know, of beliefs and afterlife, as well as grief and purpose. And especially what's unique about that film is like starting it out with he is strong and he has a place, a platform, and men follow him, and everything's stripped from him. You know what I mean? So it's strange to bring a character to make him likable in that way, but then have the inciting incident where everything unravels and he doesn't stop suffering, but he maintains the same character.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a very
definitely
archetypal hero's journey, Gladiator. I mean,
yeah.
And as well done as a story like that can be by, you know, a master like Ridley Scott. Yeah, that was one of the first DVDs that I ever bought. I worked at Walmart when I was in high school, right? And I worked, I
Yes,
finagled my way into working in the electronics department and used my employee discount to buy my first DVD player, my first set of DVDs. Gladiator is one of those, right? So before
so
that,
cool.
I had, you know, a big collection of VHS tapes, movies on VHS. DVDs.
Oh, I love that.
Because obviously when, you know, you could start to listen to the director talk about their process and talk to the other departments and the actors talking about the process. And then all of a sudden filmmaking was like a process that you could do with people that you respected, people that you admired. And it changed everything for me. Like that moment, like the Gladiator director's commentary changed everything for me, along with a couple other films. That was like in that first batch of movies where it was like, wow, this is something that I can actually do, because it's really just a you know, long laundry list of decisions that you're making around what's going to tell the story in the best possible way.
Sorry, were you gonna say something, Hiram?
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, if it wasn't the time that it is, we would want to go down the rabbit hole of Chris working at Walmart. But I guess we'll put a pause on that since Neeka's here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love it.
Hi, Neeka.
I want to hear the Walmart story.
Okay, let's go.
That was in the story. That was it. I was employee of the month, but besides that, there's really not that much interest in the backstory.
This is so exciting because this is the first time that Neeka is meeting Chris and Hiram, two guys that
so nice to meet you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Ew, I've heard so much about both of you.
Same.
Super excited.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows, and I definitely want to put this out there, this episode is, I guess, what we call a family episode, kind of like in the wheelhouse of the stuff that we've done previously, but more so that you can get to know us as human beings and the people that support us, and just kind of, it's a chill, but fun, but loving episode. Anyways, I just want to start before we started talking. So Neeka, I did the intro earlier, which Hiram or Chris usually do, and they do really well at. But I did it, and I started with ho ho ho. Welcome to our Christmas episode. Neeka's she's unimpressed. Listen,
Yeah, I'm shocked. I thought you were going to say you did like our little Baking New Memories intro.
No. So just so everybody knows, Neeka is Neeka DeGraw. She's a friend of mine. Well, family at this point. We're definitely sisters. And Neeka is our guest today. Neeka has a baking group called Baking New Memories, where she does, she started during COVID, and we'll get more into that, but she basically films and does lives of her finding old recipes and bringing them on and baking them and then talking about the memories attached to them. And with Baking New Memories, she's been able to build community. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about community, but also about me and Neeka's relationship and where that got started and kind of where it is now. And so that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, we better be talking about It's a Wonderful Life, because I watched it for you last night.
Nice.
And this morning, okay?
You did?
Yeah, well, you're like, listen, I was on a flight, okay? So I'm like, I'm going to watch this movie, because Jan's like, we're going to talk about It's a Wonderful Life and all of that. And I said, oh my God, I do remember now that I've seen it. I remembered once I started watching it, but I'm like, I really need to like brush up on this movie. And of course, we landed before it ended. So I finished it this morning for Jan because she said, well, the end is the best part. I said, of course it is. I need to finish it.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think about it?
I love it. I thought a lot of things about it, honestly. I think it's a very profound message.
Yeah.
You know, I was actually pretty surprised at how like forward thinking the movie was for being so old.
Yeah.
You know, just all the little different family issues and stuff. And like, you know, remember back in the day, it's like, this is risque and that's risque. This movie went all out.
Yeah.
I was excoriated earlier in the podcast before you jumped on because I've never actually seen it. So I'm curious what some of those takeaways were for you in terms of like what made it kind of forward thinking or progressive in that way. What were some of those messages that were ahead of its time from that period?
Yeah, you should watch it. It, you know, was just it was like a lot about like love and falling in love and dating and just kind of the things that I feel like back in that time were a little risque to be talking about. Everything was kind of private, family wise and all of that. And they were like really pushing the main character to, you know, date. And I don't know, there were just little things, you know, I don't know. Can I talk about this part where she lost her robe and she was
Yeah, of course. Neeka, you can literally be yourself because I knew that's what you were thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in a bush and she doesn't have a robe on and he's messing around with her and he's like, I'm not going to give it back. It was like, it was just kind of interesting to me.
I think, you know, and even the reasons I love that film, so because just, you know, Jan and I both pinned that as our, you know, one of our favorite Christmas films. And for me, I would flip the context of the way you're saying it. I would say it wasn't forward thinking. I would say it's a time capsule of just the human condition. And it's honest about the whole, like, and what's so crazy about it is you watch it and it's like, okay, here's a film from, I think, 1944 or 42 or whenever it was. And almost, I believe, all of the cast except for one or two individuals that were babies have passed away, right? And so it's like everyone that was leading that, Donna Reed, all of them have now passed away. And then here's this visual that humbles you because it's like, oh my gosh, like these people are no longer alive and they told this story. And it relates to me today, you know? And it's like been almost now 80 years and it's like, I can't believe how this resonates with me over and over. And even like someone like, you know, Donna Reed is just a beautiful, amazing image of a woman. And this guy's too old and he can't figure out what he wants to do, whether he's going to world travel. And he changes his whole life to serve his family and his community. And it resonates so strongly, especially emotionally, when we talk about the ending, like what life is about, what love is about, what family is about, how we live as a community, and even as business owners.
I feel like, isn't that so much still the way? Like everything that you just said made me kind of think back on when I met my first husband. I went to college where he went because I wanted to be where he was, you know. It's like you change your life sort of goals when you have sort of a love interest, right? All of the things that he wanted to go out and explore and do, in some ways she sort of kept him there for a minute. And then of course it was the passing of his father. So isn't that just the reality of life? The passing of his father, he needed to take over and he really stepped up into what he was being called to do and his life worked out. When you see where he no longer is, right? Where I wish I wasn't born.
Yeah.
Right? Which is very much, I think, a part of the human condition of depression and things like that. You hear that often when people are not in a good place. I just wish that I wasn't born. But then when they say, okay, well, you're not, let me show you everything that you're missing, right? It made me realize, which I've realized, listen, I've had a lot of life experiences. I don't know everything, but I'm 51. I've seen a few things. I've had some deaths in my family and so forth, and a lot of change in life, which is totally normal. And I think to be embraced, but to watch him be like, wait a minute, where is everybody that I love? Where's everything that I know?
Yeah.
You know?
We all need to be reminded.
That was special to me.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Bet you
Yeah.
Chris is just missing out right now.
Yeah. Well,
He's
it's, you know,
gonna
it's one of
watch
those,
it
it's one of
after
those, yeah, it's one of those classic films that everybody kind of knows the story beats of. You know what I mean? So it's not like I don't know anything about it, but yeah, I've never watched it like from top to bottom, soup to nuts.
And-
to
Yeah,
kind of
it's
see it all.
long.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it is long. I think what always hits me too as a filmmaker is, you know, we get so caught up, and I know Chris can attest to this, like we get caught up in the gear and the quality and the lighting and all these things. And in that film, the snow is foam. I mean, like you can see it running down the side of the car. It's like they executed at the level that they could at that time, but it's the story that just shines through and you get lost in it. And I'm like, how am I lost in a black and white film that is 2 and something hours long, right? And it's just so poor quality, but at the same time, it is such good storytelling and it's
Okay,
captivating.
I'm gonna take that point right there
Mhm.
for making new memories, and here's why.
Mhm.
Okay.
I literally thought about this over, like, I would say the last few days. I remembered thinking, because I started making new memories during COVID. I had all the time in the world. We were all laid off,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm home. So I remember I love baking. I'm going to do this. And so I start doing lives on my laptop. Okay. And people were joining and people were enjoying, and it was getting their minds off of things and the whole thing. And I didn't think about ring lights and, you know, all of the things to make it like more like a show
Yeah.
and more, you know, and make me look better. Right.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
wasn't what it was about. And I
Yeah.
literally thought about this the other day, because I'm like, well, I'm back at work, and I have a lot of jobs. Jan can attest to
Mhm.
a lot of jobs. And baking is a therapy for me. And my group is a therapeutic group. My private group on Baking New Memories. You know, we all are dealing with life experiences.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I wish I had more time to do the social media and all the things that I need to do to make everything grow and get the sponsorship and all of that. And then I said to myself, hold on, back the truck up.
Yeah.
Started this on a fucking laptop.
Right.
Do you really need things to be perfect to continue doing what you love to do and just share with those people that are dealing with real life? Everything, Jan knows, everything I used to say was, you don't have to have all the things
Yeah.
that I have.
Mhm.
You can use whatever's in your house. Don't feel like you can't do this. I don't care if you substitute this, that, or anything else. So now why do I have to substitute my laptop with a ring light and the phone and the posting? I don't, because it's about the people that are involved, and it's
right.
about the message and the community.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I really thought that
1000%.
just the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
love
think
it.
I'd love to dive into this more, but I think I want to back the truck up, like Neeka says, and talk a little bit about, yeah.
I know, right?
And just to give people some context about, you know, how we met, who you are to me, and then go into Baking New Memories and about community, because I'm sure that our listener, my mom, is so curious to know.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Let me tell you what. I'm so happy that she's watching, listening.
So Neeka, tell us how did you and I meet? What was the whole
Oh my
journey on
gosh.
this?
It was so many years ago.
It was
I
like,
can't believe we're still alive.
I know.
But it was a long time ago.
It was like 15 years ago, over 15
Say
years ago.
more. Yeah, I would say more.
Yeah.
We met. So when my brother was just getting started, do we need to plug him in? Gavin DeGraw. When Gavin was getting started, like he needs a plug.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't.
So I was actually running the fan club at the time and doing merchandise and, you know, this kind of stuff. So I had a computer at home, and I'm going through all the different people that are saying hi and loving my brother, you know, which was incredible. And I came across Jan. Jan, what was it exactly again? It was, you were doing something.
Yeah, I had written an article about him for my church's newsletter, and then it like blew up and went like all over the world. And so people were sending responses saying, how much Gavin and his music and his art affected them. And one of the stories that made me send all of this to you guys was there was a woman that said that her daughter had just gotten diagnosed with some medical condition and she had lost all hope, and she put her daughter in the bathtub, and she had just read my article and put Gavin's music on, and she started praying and crying and then believed that anything was possible and prayed over her daughter, and it gave her hope again. And so I got those responses and sent them to Neeka and them, because I'm like, hey, you know, this is what's coming back to us.
Yeah. And, you know, there is healing in the music, and we know that music is a very healing thing. And Gavin sings about such, you know, real stuff. And I know he's touched a lot of people. Well, when Jan wrote and reached out to me, it just resonated with me, you know, and we became friends that way. And she had expressed an interest in going to film school in New York City, but you lived in Atlanta at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it really seemed like an impossibility. We had a car. This is so crazy. So we had a car that my husband and I had a car that was off the road. We got a new car. We hadn't sold that one yet. So off the road. And I said to Jan, here's what I can do. And I'm a problem solving kind of person for the right people. I said, if you come here and stay with us, we're not far from the train. You can go to film school. You have to put the car on the road and insure it yourself. That's all that I ask. And, you know, if that works for you, it works for us.
That's amazing.
And she came.
Yeah. And what was so crazy about that, because at the time it was like before Facebook was really a thing. And so I'm looking for New York City apartments on Craigslist.
Right.
Okay. And it was like scary photos of like one bedroom with like a bed in the corner. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because I went to the New York Film Academy. So you had to pay for your room and board and stuff like that. And so Neeka and her family offered to let me come stay with them and gave me that car. And Neeka, and she had 3 little kids who are now like all grown up, married, in college.
Yeah. My baby's in college. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would watch them, and we just became a little family. And I remember I prayed right before then. I said, God, I want to be with people that feel like family, because I didn't want to live with strangers. And immediately we all became family. Yeah.
And we became
Okay, so pause real quick.
Okay.
Pause real quick. Had you guys met in person at that point?
No.
Wow.
Wow, Neeka, that says a lot about you. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just through email. There was no social media. It was literally email. And I remember this. And
MySpace at the time.
There was a MySpace. So we didn't.
Fair enough.
Really wanted,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Don't know
We
how
didn't-
long ago this was.
Yeah, we didn't know each other through my. But I do remember the last email the first email that Neeka sent to me was, I really believe that you're supposed to be in my life. And I really believe that we're supposed to be, you know.
Who the fuck could have known? I mean, honestly,
Amen.
that time,
Wow.
Yeah.
God almighty, my kids were so little.
Yeah.
And so Jan had all of these different things that she had to do for school and different films and all of this. And my kids and I, and even my ex-husband, we were in all of them.
Wow.
They were. They'd watch. So I had Hayram and Chris watch The Bully.
Yeah, let's tell us about that experience. What was The Bully like? 'Cause it is, looking back on it now, obviously, you know, Jan has come a long way from that little film. You know, for the better, for sure. It was, but it looked like it was like a really fun experience for all of you. You know, considering the subject matter, which is about domestic violence and bullying. So, but I mean, it clearly looked like it was made with love. So I was curious to hear your experience.
We had an absolute blast. I was down for anything that Jan wanted to do, and it was the middle of winter
In New York. Upstate
in
New York.
with everything that she wanted to do. There were points in time, even outside of the Bully, I was like laying in the snow in a dress. I'm not kidding. I was like all about Jan's vision. So
Yeah.
that Bully, I mean, I just thought having my kids involved and what a powerful message that was. And if you think about it, that message really came before bullying became such an important topic
Right.
in schools, you know, and for the sake of people's lives. And that's something that I really think about Jan. She's very, very forward thinking. She sees very, very far ahead. And a lot of the things that she's talked about over the years, the voice is for now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You were very like I don't know. You had a vision.
That's very sweet.
It drove me crazy, but you had a vision.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the driving of you crazy, because that resonates with me a little bit.
Stop it, Chris! Stop it!
No, but I mean, it must have taken a lot to to have the faith to see somebody who was really passionate about what their objectives were, and to allow them in your home. Yeah.
And listen, somebody took her camera and I was going to kill a motherfucker.
No, let me tell you. So let me tell you this story. So 2 things. Number 1, 2 memories that I have from that. There were students that came up from the city to help me, and they didn't finish shooting for the day. And of course I had all these dreams and visions about what's supposed to be. And so they took the gear with them. And so I thought, oh, they're going to bring it. They said they were going to bring it back. But then they called me and said that they weren't going to bring it back. And me, at the time, I said, oh, okay, thinking, how am I going to get my project done? Neeka said, give me the phone. And she literally, I don't want to say the expletives that she said because my dad is probably listening, but Neeka, share with everybody. You were just like...
I mean, listen, I don't remember the exact words, but it was probably something like, if you don't return that fucking camera, I'm going to come and fucking find you. That's the end of the story. All right?
What I'm really hearing here is that Neeka was your first producer. That's all I'm hearing. Supporting your vision and getting it done.
Yes. But the other great thing about, and so that, number 1, feeling like family and Neeka standing up for me like that. I am a huge, I don't know, I just love being a protector and being protected. And that is such a love language for me. Why I'm about to cry, I'm not gonna cry. But
we got
don't
time.
cry. Don't do it.
Yeah. But I will say that the other memory that I have from that, I always think about it whenever I show people. So The Bully is like a student film that I did about Neeka's 2 kids being bullied by a neighbor. And then they grow up and Neeka's the older version of one of her daughters experiencing domestic violence. And
that's okay. Thank you.
And the younger sister comes in to help and save her. Well, I remember we asked Gavin had this song out at the time called Belief. And I was like, it'd be the perfect song. So we asked Gavin if we could use it. And he said yes, right? And in my mind, I was like, this is it. I'm a professional filmmaker. This is going to touch everybody's hearts, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember sitting down with Neeka and her mom and dad, her mom, Lynn, and her dad, Wayne. And all I remember is Wayne kind of had this, he's just nodding his head like, yeah, this is solid. You know what I mean? I remember Lynn just started giggling the whole time. It was like, isn't this cute? Look at the kids. Da, da, da. And it was such a sweet response because in hindsight, I knew that she was just proud of the whole thing, you know? But at the time, I remember sitting next to Lynn, seething, being like, I love you, but this is a serious film. You know what I mean? And being like, how can you laugh at a moment like this? But she was the sweetest, sweetest lady.
So funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Nice.
So then just over time, I mean, I finished film school, went to Atlanta. We kind of
we literally just went on totally separate paths, and I didn't hear from Jan. It had to be, how many years did we figure it out?
At least 10. At least 10
years.
Yeah. And in the interim, so Chris, this is where Chris comes in.
Now, social media did happen in the interim.
Yeah,
so
in the interim.
Kind of could keep up with each other to a degree, but we never got back together or anything like that.
Yeah. And so this is where Chris comes in. So Gavin had an album called, not She Sets the City on Fire, but She Sets the City on Fire was a part of it. Was a single, and then You Make My Heart Sing Louder. And that's when I went to Chris and was like, hey Chris, I want to make this dance film for Gavin. And then Chris was like, yeah, whatever you need. And Chris shot it, we did it together, and then
dude, that fucking film was insane. That was insane.
It's still one of my favorites. It's really,
when Jan sent me that,
so
I
much
was
joy.
like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was everything I envisioned for my brother's music.
Right.
I could see a lot of his music having that kind of creativity and art,
yeah,
and passion.
And listen, we've talked about it before. I mean, it was obviously made with a lot of passion, especially on Jan's part. And you know, I played my support role for her, but it really felt like it captured something. The video with the song captured something very much in that moment. I really felt like the combination really had the potential to be like the song of the summer, because of it had that nostalgic quality, but it was still very modern and had the references to, you know, some of the culture's most important films. Like, you know what I mean? It had so many things going for it that were all based on Jan's vision and her relationship with Gavin and his music. It really was a perfect pairing. So it was such an incredible pleasure to be a part of that. And every time I look back on it, it just gives me a huge smile on my face, because it was such a
It was. And you know what? I really feel this way. I say this about everything. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So I really have seen Jan, and, you know, creative people are ahead of their time. You can see things, you can feel things, you can sense things. And as much as that might not have been as big as I'm hands down should have been the thing with that song, right? Timing's everything. And it's not lost on him.
Right. Yeah.
Moment. Right.
Yeah,
The
I think
album
too.
was
Like
so great. I mean, Jan really introduced me to Gavin's music, and that whole album was phenomenal. Like it's honestly not the necessarily a genre of music that I am particularly that I tend to listen to very often. However, what we created with that video, and then another piece that Jan and I collaborated on that was associated with another song on that album.
You Make My Heart Sing Louder.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hear in so many moments on that record like what Gavin's passion is, and he has a really kind of amazing ability to capture a mood and a tone and a feeling in a way that is very visceral and evocative, and it lends itself to a really kind of narrative visual sensibility. And yeah, Jan was able to really capture that really well.
Yeah,
with both of those.
fully agree with that. 1000%.
Yeah, I think too, like that, like when you say timing and things like that, I think one of the things, because like, you know, I wasn't a part of that project in any way. And every time I watch that video, like I feel the tangible joy of everything artistry meshing together. It's like not just the song and the songwriting, not just the visuals, but the dancers and like the age differences and the styles of dance. And Jan has used that particular video multiple times in classes and broken down for students what it takes to execute that vision. And I think because it is so tangible and palpable, it's like it's still given, you know what I mean? Because that's what art does in its own right. You know, it's so true in its purest form. It doesn't have to be the biggest viral sensation, going back to your show and what we're talking about. It doesn't have to be the highest production quality. It just has to have the heart and the passion behind
That's
it.
exactly right.
And it changes lives, you know? So.
And I will say, sorry.
Go ahead. No, please do.
Well, no, I just wanted to clarify also, Gavin and his team, they were so, I feel like, just so appreciative and happy about it. Like they really loved it. And it just all came down to timing, like Neeka said. So throughout the years, Gavin.
Same thing. Think about it. It's the same thing with, his roadshow that he did with the last album. I mean, who would have thought in 1,000 years, you know, that that this would be coming together at the time that it did. The timing again was perfectly amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to talk about that. Yeah, story a little bit. And also timing in the beginning, because like the next project, and I know I wanted to clarify that Gavin and his team, they were really happy about it, and Gavin recognizes all of the things that we're talking about. And one of
your name is in the credits.
One of the and I do want to talk about again how instrumental Neeka has been throughout my career. Yes, no, seriously, throughout my career. Listen, Neeka made sure that Gavin saw this stuff. You know what I mean? She made sure, as his sister, that she was like, "Listen, Gavin," but in her own New York way. Okay, but what? Yeah, but what I do think is interesting is about timing. Chris and I did You Make My Heart Sing Louder. And it was a spec video for one of his songs. And I just chose that song because I loved it. And then this is how Neeka and I actually.
Who do I think of when I hear the title of that song?
Your mom?
Of course.
Yeah, that's how Neeka and I, so it ties into how Neeka and I came back together. Was I did that song, and at the time, Neeka's mom was dying of cancer.
Yeah.
And I made that song, and when I think
that was off the album Something Worth Saving.
Yes, Something Worth Saving. When I think about that, and I remember feeling like I could do the single Something Worth Saving, or I could do You Make My Heart Sing Louder. And Something Worth Saving was going to be the single. I knew it. But something in my heart was like, but this is important. And
What was her favorite song?
It was her mom's favorite song. And what's crazy about that is I remember being able to make a video for that and Lynn being able to see it before she passed. And so, I don't know, when I think about serendipity and stuff like that, it always makes my heart,
I'm telling you, it's all about the stars aligning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's how, so Neeka and I came back together when my mom passed away. So Jan and I hadn't seen each other in probably 10 years.
Wow.
At least. And my mom passed away. It was a very long, difficult illness. And at the funeral, I literally got this like tap. I would say on my shoulder, but it was lower because Jan, she's just a little bitty. And I turned around and I like looked and then I looked down. And I was like, what?
Yes, she started screaming
screaming. I couldn't believe that you were there.
Yeah, and if anybody that knows me,
never ever left.
Yeah, then I never left.
That was it.
Yeah, that was it.
Nashville.
Yeah. Well, and I also think about that time. I remember thinking, should I go to the funeral or should I not? Because we hadn't seen each other in so long and I didn't want to be rude and all of this stuff.
She helped me so much. You helped me so much, and you know that. She helped me so much after that funeral and came to the house, and she's like, I'm just here to help, whatever you need. And she stayed. I was a single mom.
Right.
3 kids, lost my mom. And I'm like, if you're here to help, I'm here to take it.
Yeah.
1,000%, I'm like, I'm
wonderful.
not gonna say no. And Jan did amazing things. She took flowers from my mom's funeral to old age home to give to people before the flowers died. And like really just loving and caring things that I had so many bouquets in my house. I don't know I have a lot of dead flowers in my house. She knows I like to dry flowers.
Yeah, she does.
Here and there, but that was too many.
Yeah. But what's crazy about that time though, and then I know I definitely want you guys to interject to move us along if you need to, but what was crazy about that time is I remember thinking, I don't know if I should go because I don't know if that's like, if it's appropriate. And I remember every time I thought about that, I remembered Lynn and Wayne used to drive me to New York sometimes to go to school instead of me taking the train. And all I remember, sorry.
Okay.
No, it's okay. All I remember is Lynn had this laugh, this like amazing laugh. And I remember just Wayne saying some joke, probably a dirty joke, who knows. And I just remember Lynn turning around and laughing and turning around and looking at me and laughing. And I thought, love just does.
Yeah.
Right? No matter what you think, love just does. And so I went to honor her because I did love her and she impacted my life. So
yeah.
That's beautiful.
And she did. And Jan stayed. And what happened in between? I don't even know. All of a sudden it was like COVID, I feel like.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us into how Baking New Memories came about then. I'm super interested in
same.
what that was like, what motivated you, like how did that become what
a thing? Yeah. I don't know. Listen, I had zero plans to do baking anything, especially on social media. This was not, I hadn't thought about baking in so many years, but COVID, as you know, slowed everybody down to a point where you're out of work, you're scared, right? In the beginning, we had no idea what was going on with COVID. We thought anybody, if you like sneeze on someone, they're going to die, and then everybody related to them is going to die. It was horrifying. Yeah. So I had my children come home. They lived in Chattanooga, a couple hours away from me. And I just said, listen, before borders are closed and this and that and everything else, because we don't know what's coming, I want everyone to come home. We're going to be quarantined together. And that way we know that at least we're together if, the world falls apart. So everyone came home. These were my adult kids. And while they were home, I said, it just occurred to me, I wanted to bake something. Siri always thinks I'm talking to her. I found this on the web. I wonder what it was. So I said, I want to bake something. I want to bake my great-grandmother's Mandelbrot. I know that you guys have no idea what that is.
No idea.
Nobody knows what that is. I know.
I love it. I love it.
Think about a biscotti, okay? Yep. Mm-hmm. But more cakey and falling apart.
Oh, okay.
Now, I had my great-grandmother into my second pregnancy. I'm like in my 30s. Like, who has it? My great-grandmother.
Wow. And really quickly, can you tell, Neeka's from the Catskills and like, she's Jewish, I guess.
Yeah.
All that.
Jewish, I guess.
What?
Well, I'm just saying, there's like a history. Like her grandfather taught dance at the Dirty Dancing hotel. Like there's a lot of history.
You can imagine if you think of Dirty Dancing, that was my family.
Amazing.
My great grandfather was an MC at all the big hotels. He introduced all the greats, Frank Sinatra, everyone that you can think of that came. All the entertainment came to the Catskills. Right. At the time, and people would come from New York City and they would spend their summers in the Catskills. The husbands would go back and work in the city while the, mothers and children were staying for the summer and just enjoying themselves. Bungalow colonies, which you probably don't know what that is. But my great grandfather owned a bungalow colony with a pool and all the things. So my great grandmother, Minnie Burns, used to, she used to make chopped liver, and we ate that as a kid. And I'm like, wow. I can't wait for a chopped liver. That's bizarre.
Right.
All right. So the Mandelbrot, I said to my kids, you know what? I want to make this. I've never made it before. We should do it together. We're stuck in the house. We have nothing to do. I texted my aunt. I said, I need great-grandma's recipe for Mandelbrot. She sent it to me in my great-grandmother's handwriting.
Wow.
And one of the measurements was a juice glass. It might be the size of that mug.
Yeah.
Maybe a little smaller. I don't know. Who has a juice glass anymore? That used to be a thing, right?
Right.
Gosh.
So we go in the kitchen, we start making all of this. And while I'm making it, I start telling stories of my great-grandmother, my childhood, my memories.
Yeah.
And it was so special. It was poignant, really. It was things that if that time hadn't happened, my kids would not know.
Right. Right.
But here's the crazy, and that's a big deal because that's a huge part of their lives. They don't realize this is their heritage.
Yeah.
Okay. Russian, Jewish, Mandelbrot.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the crazy thing, though. It came out perfect.
Wow.
That was the bizarre part.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. This is literally Mandelbrot.
Yeah.
Right? And we ate it, and the kids said to me they remembered my mother, their grandmother, making it once.
Wow, really?
They remembered it.
Wow.
So I know. And so I said, you know what? I got to share this with everybody.
Yeah.
This is important. This is our heritage.
Mm-hmm.
These are our memories. So I don't even remember how it started. I guess I started a group. I don't know. I posted that on Facebook.
Yep.
And I posted a picture of my great-grandmother. And I posted a picture of the recipe written in handwriting.
Yeah.
And I said, these are the important things, right?
Exactly.
But more important than that to me was, do people have a memory of a recipe that they can't find? They remember what it tasted like. They remember how it made them feel. How can I help them recreate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it brings all those feelings, even if it's not the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And you can do that. And that's what I started doing. And I started having people send me recipes. I had one woman, Katrina. I ended up having a Zoom with her because I was so amazed by her story. Her grandmother was Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Katrina wasn't Spanish. So this was like step grandmother, like, you know, this kind of thing. But she ate her grandmother's food and she remembered how it made her feel. And she had a recipe on a piece of paper that had sauce splattered on it. It was burned on the edges. It had, like, you know, accidentally caught on fire and all this kind of stuff. But here's the thing, it was written in Spanish.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
She didn't speak Spanish. And she wanted to make it again, but she couldn't understand what it said. Well, my daughter, her boyfriend, who she's married to at the time, Jorge, he's Venezuelan. He was quarantined at home with us.
Perfect.
Amazing. That's so amazing.
I know. And I said, listen, let me translate this for you. I'm going to have Jorge translate this for you. And then let's make it together.
That's wild. Yo,
right?
that's
We're bored
crazy.
as hell. We're both home. We're stuck. You're going to make it. I'm going to make it. So Jorge says, of course, Neeka, let me look. And he looks at it. He goes, it's called lasagna for 12.
Wow. Nice.
That's what it was called.
Yeah.
Lasagna for 12. And so he starts to read off, this is how you make this.
Nice.
And so I printed it and I sent it back to her and I said, here's your grandmother's recipe.
Amazing.
And we picked a day and we both made it.
Wow.
And her son, so Katrina's son, Ethan, who now I consider my nephew, and he calls me Aunt Neeka, and I love him. They live in Texas. I never knew these people.
Right.
But this was what it was all about. And she made it, and I made it, and Ethan loved it. But Katrina said to me, I haven't tasted my grandmother's food for so long.
Wow. Incredible.
God,
And it brought back all those memories for her, you know? And then I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to help people move these memories into their life, make it relevant, make it now, make it important. Their kids remember, or at least get some of the flavor, because more than the flavor and the actual recipe, it's the stories.
Yeah.
When you start making something reminiscent, you start telling stories.
Right.
That's all we have, right? Isn't that what lore, folklore, and all the things are about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a great story. I mean, it really is an incredible testament to the power of sense memory, but also of that, you know, the fabric that is created through the act of love of making food for the people in your family. Like, that is such an incredibly powerful force, you know, for that kind of, that sense of community, that sense of closeness and intimacy, and yeah, to have those kind of thoughts and memories and emotions and feelings rush back to you just at the taste of food that was prepared for you by, you know, with the loving hands of someone from a generation, 2 generations ago. That fabric is so critical to, I think, holding on to what makes, you know, all of our cultures so special, is because once those people are gone, their stories are gone, their history goes with them so often. And it can be like a really
feels
kind of
that way.
thing. Yeah.
But think about what you guys are doing as creatives as well. You know, I mean, I feel like we're always perpetuating something that we've learned or grown to know or love. So creatives are perpetuating their heart, right?
Yeah.
And their thoughts and what's in their mind.
Yeah.
And if we can evoke a feeling from somebody, that's what it takes, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And the food is a big part of that. The smells, the sensory, like you're saying, it connects directly to the heart.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, if I may kind of share a personal, because I don't know, I want to say this because I don't know that I'd ever say it otherwise, and you've kind of jostled it out of my mind. And it is a deep regret. And so I'm trying to figure out how to, because it's going to be a negative, but also a positive, where there's like some regret and an encouragement to you and your show and what you're doing. Because like for me, so my grandmother passed away in 2021. And she, like, the biggest regret that I have is almost kind of going back further. When I was 20, there was a period of time where my grandfather was in the hospital, and it was prolonged. It was like he was, you know, kind of sedated, and it was weeks and weeks and weeks. And so I went and just stayed with her and was just helping her in the daily process and running my grandfather's business, and just trying to be present and strong for her, in a sense of just being there. And one of the things that we did during that time was, I'd always loved her potato salad. It's very unique to the North. It's that heavy mustard, spicy, right? And she would make it every year for the 4th of July, right? Like clockwork. And I always loved it, always way more than I should have. And so during that period of weeks, she taught me how to make that recipe, and she wrote a copy for me, right? And then I had lost track of it, right? So when she passed away in 2021, the first thing I said to like her daughters, you know, my mom and aunt and everything was, hey, can we find any remnants of that recipe? Because I didn't keep my copy, and like, it's going to be gone, you know? And I have been unable to find it. And so if, you know, if it was there, like, you're just compelling this thought, and I've kind of blocked it out of my mind, because I know that particular recipe in yellow mustard in itself, in that kind of format, reminds me of all those experiences and all those memories year after year of, you know, 4th of July, family together, doing jump rope and swimming in the lake and type of stuff, you know? So I resonate so deeply with what we're talking about. I really do.
Well, I can tell you this, if nobody can find it, listen, I've been searching for a recipe of my mother's for the longest time. I can't tell you how many fucking apple cakes I've made to try to, you know, recreate her
wow.
I've looked in every cookbook and everything that and I cannot. I've done probably 10 or 11 at this point, and I'm getting close. But if I can help you in any way, recreate that memory, I will be more. My mother made an amazing potato salad, but what I need to know is what your memory is of it, the flavors, the taste, this and that. And I can work on it for you and send you your own recipe. And I've done this before. You remember Jan, Tammy.
Yeah.
Tamara and and Charles. So do you guys remember the tornado that happened in Nashville, but then it moved over to Cookeville? This is just several years ago. It's not that long ago. 4 or 5?
It was 2020. It was right at the beginning of COVID, right? Is that the one we're talking about?
The huge tornado.
Yes, I think it was like February 2020. Yep.
Wasn't that long ago. Well, happened to be that a friend of mine's sister in Cookeville lost their home. And I'm telling you, not just lost their home. It was a family of 5 clinging to a toilet bowl.
Wow.
Jeez.
Everyone across the street from them was the largest loss of life in that tornado in Cookeville. Okay, that was the largest loss of life from that tornado. I went to the site and it was flattened.
Wow.
Beautiful community. These people somehow survived this with their 3 children and 2 dogs in a bathroom with the dad laying on top of them. So not to get into too much detail, it was hell, and it was a change of life for them, and but they were alive. I had started baking new memories around the same time. So you're right, it's about 2020. Because I remember the husband, Charles, by the way, service member, served our country, and we thank him. He joined the group, and he said, and now I'm Jewish, so my grandmother used to make something called a kugel.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Okay. It's a noodle pudding.
Right.
You can make it savory. You can make it sweet. My grandmother loved sweet. We made it sweet. So it would be like egg noodles, sour cream, cottage cheese. It sounds crazy. Eggs, cinnamon, milk, and all this stuff. And it made this delicious pudding. I posted it on Baking New Memories. Now, Charles, who had lost his home, reached out to me and said, my grandmother used to make something like this. And I loved it so much. I loved it. But all of the recipes. What did he do?
I was trying to talk it.
It was a really good attempt. It was really
effort.
respectful.
I gotta stir the cheese dip. I gotta stir my
He
cheese
has to
dip.
stir the cheese dip. Another memory, another check,
perfect-
another food
I
memory.
love it. I love it.
Check. So it was a nice attempt.
It was
So
really nice.
he said my grandmother used to make something like that. He lost all of his recipes in the tornado.
Wow.
None of his grandmother's recipes remained.
Man.
So I said, what do you remember about the recipe? And he told me everything that tasted like this, that, and the other thing. And I concocted what I felt like he was saying. And then my daughter and I drove it to him in Cookville when it was done.
Wow.
And it brought him to tears. He said, I hadn't tasted my grandmother's food in so long.
Wow.
And it tastes like this. And I brought the recipe card of the new recipe that I came up with. I just did as close as I could, as long as it tasted, and it brought him that memory. That's all I cared about, you know?
Well, can we talk about, so I think there are a couple of things that you said that were interesting. Number one, just the power of community. Just the power of community.
Sound interesting. I'm glad you think so.
What?
I said, I feel like I don't sound interesting.
No, this is
Oh no, it
really
sounds
think
very
so.
interesting. Yeah. You're talking to a bunch of filmmakers. So in my head, I'm just like, man, why wasn't the
man.
documentary crew following you? Like,
saying, exactly. That
who
part-
missed out on this opportunity? Who missed out?
No, but
Not yet.
she documented it, and I don't know. It made me think about the power of community, right? And how important that is for people to feel seen and heard, right? And that's a lot of kind of what we've been talking about, just in terms of Heartbeat Film Club. This podcast it's so important to see the hearts of other people, but also like it's important that people feel seen and heard and important. You know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of what you do with Baking New Memories. That's a lot of what you've been in my life. The other thing that I hear is about stories, you know, and as filmmakers, everybody has a story, but I think it's how you uniquely tell it, the things that are uniquely you that make it powerful. And so those are the two things that I get from what you're saying is like, all of these kind of recipes are unique to the people that it comes from and their lineage, and it makes them uniquely you, or makes them uniquely them.
Uniquely them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, you got to say it right. It's them.
Mm-hmm.
I love specifically your heart in like, because I think there's something more there too. It's just like, it's a rarity, your generosity to serve other people's stories. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's what we do as filmmakers. We're serving other people's stories and helping them tell it well. And your generosity in wanting Jan to tell her stories and believing in her, as well as, you knowing that a recipe is a story, and it's a story of someone's life and existence and generations, and the way that they receive love in its own right. And like, just, your heart in making your story giving to other people's, and that love is something really I just want to articulate and point out, because I don't think it's fully tangible, and it's not in everyone's heart.
Wow. I appreciate that. It's so funny because I just get to a point where it's like, I don't think that I am doing it for any particular reason. I know for myself, because of the loss that I've suffered in my life, if I didn't have Baking New Memories I didn't have it when I was losing my mom, but it was born out of COVID. And it was like therapy for me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it's therapy for so many people.
Right.
And there are great bakers in my group. I mean, great, way beyond my skill, way beyond my capacity. It's not about that. Because for me, I say, I don't care if you make it out of a box. I don't care if you have any of the right ingredients. You take what you have, you do what you can do, and you make something. If this is your therapy, it's the love that's poured into it. Isn't that the most important ingredient?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about it, and that's what I want people to feel. This is not a baking show where it's like, hey, can you do what I do? No, Can you feel what I feel? Yes.
Yeah.
You
Can you talk a little bit about how Baking New Memories helped you and help the community when you were going through what you were going through with your dad, with Wayne?
Absolutely. Absolutely. By the time my father was sick with brain cancer, Baking New Memories I was doing it every other, I don't remember, one Sunday a month, every other, I don't know. We were doing lives all the time. And Jan and I were working very, very closely together. We lived together. She was super involved in all things family. She was my family, and my support, really, my rock. I had a lot happening, and I had to move in with my dad to help him. But I also had my community of love. I call them love bakers. Okay. My community of love bakers was also counting on me. They were looking forward to the shows and the time, because they were also dealing with their own family things. And this was an escape, right? And then if we could take each other's recipes and sort of bake them and do them and talk to each other about them, we were just in this support group together, really. And so when I moved in with my father, he was very sick. And I had a lot to do physically for him. I stopped, well, thank God it was COVID. It was so bizarre, but I was able to not be at work.
Right.
And still get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So this was good. And I said, look, I'm sorry, Dad. I have to keep doing my show. I've got people count. Are you okay with this? And are you kidding? He wanted to fucking eat everything I made.
Yeah.
Like, am I okay with it? Yeah, baking. So there was the one time that I made this trifle. This is a great memory for me. I made a trifle. It had to be Memorial Day, Jan. Something like that, right?
Yeah, because you wanted to do red, white, and blue.
Yeah. It was Memorial Day.
You're speaking my language. This is my favorite cake.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm going to do a trifle, but listen, I'm not just doing a trifle. I'm baking the pound cake.
Yeah.
I'm going to put lemon curd. I don't even know what these words mean. Okay, I've seen it, but right. I'm going to do it now.
Right.
But one of my favorite things to do on Baking New Memories is to make something difficult for the first time in front of everyone.
Right.
Because I want them to feel like they can do it too. I never made lemon curd in my life, but I'm going to make this trifle. So my dad goes in his bedroom and he gets on his phone and he's watching Baking New Memories in his kitchen on his phone. On Facebook. And I made this whole trifle. And Jan, of course, followed me around like this was a really big production, getting all the angles and all the shots and all the things.
Believe it.
Yep. And I get it done. It's gorgeous and beautiful. And my father comes out of his bedroom and he goes, "Is that here? Where is it? Is that in this house?"
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, "It is." And I gave him some, and I always like to video him tasting the food, and what is he going to say?
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing.
But the greatest thing about that, though, not only were you able to capture all of that time with video, but also I remember your dad saying how proud he was of you. And that was the moment that your dad, you living there and doing Baking New Memories, you really got to kind of grow up and shine and start doing something creative that was in your heart. And your dad got to see it before he passed. That's true. He was able to tell you how proud he was of you.
That is true. He looked at me. Well, first of all, my father, unbeknownst to me, was watching all of my lives before I ever moved there and helped him. And he said to me after I was there and I did all of that, he looked at me and he always liked to point his finger. And he said, "You found what you're supposed to do. You're a natural. This is what you're supposed to be doing, Yeah. And I was just like, I mean, of course, that meant the world to me for my dad to be proud and believe in me, right? Over something for me, this is like a dream. Could I bake every day? Of course I can. I love it.
And what's so great before we kind of wrap up is I feel like you have supported me in my career, not only with whether I was brainstorming about an idea that I just get, like when I was trying to do that Tyler Perry thing in the Tyler Perry studios, and it was like, she was like with all of her F-bombs, just trying to like help me out, you know? Neeka has always believed in me. Always believed in me, always set up opportunity to show people how much she believed in me, and was very instrumental in helping me be a part of Gavin's documentary Face the River. And just in general, every person that she meets, she tells them about the gift that she thinks that I have. And coming from a person that's a creative, it is such a gift to have people like that in your life. Yeah. Because you get so... You start thinking, does this really matter?
I know. That's exactly right. And you do wonder that.
Yeah.
Does it really matter? Because you're doing what you love. Does anybody else give a shit? You start wondering that. You're doing what you love, but does anyone else care?
Yeah. And having Neeka's support for almost 20 years, I think, and along with other people, is how I am where I am. Because if I didn't have that support, I don't know how far I would have gone.
Stop it.
But I'm serious. But no, I'm serious. But also, like, for you, how has having the Baking New Memories community been supportive for you in this part of your life?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? First of all, it's a dream. I have 1,100 people in my group.
Wow.
I can't even, you know, I've got founders of the group in there that, I mean, they're going through things. They share, they show their baking way better than anything I could ever do. It doesn't matter. It's like our stories and it's like you said, weaving, it's like a tapestry, right? So we get stronger the more stitches that come together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all that matters to me.
Beautiful.
I don't care about anything else with it, really. It's that we have each other and we're sharing real life experiences, and our therapy happens to be baking.
Love it.
You know, and even if it's not, guess what? We're real people. We talk about everything. I've got someone on there. I love her so much, Susan DeVito. She doesn't bake for shit. She'll do everything out of a box, or like, look how terrible this is. This is awful, but I made blueberry muffins. She cracks me up.
Oh, I love that.
It's like nailed it, Tom said. That's exactly right. It's like, can you do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. And it's like, you know, but she had a blast doing it. And she's like the comic relief. It fucking cracks me up. You need all of that.
Yeah.
You need all of the elements. If everyone was great at one thing, how boring.
Right.
Right? So it's what they all bring, what they each bring. It's not about perfection. It's about community.
Yes, that's how I feel about us, guys. Neeka's gonna make me cry. Yeah.
Right.
Do y'all have any other thoughts or questions for Neeka before we wrap up?
I think we need to turn this into like a real proper series, man. I feel like there's all this talent on this little show that we got right here, and all this passion. We got to turn it into something together. Let's go for it.
Love it.
I'm down.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Set it up, Jan.
Yes, I will. I will.
Ho, ho, ho.
So here's what I say. Then next, everybody in my house for a bake.
Let's go. Let's
do it.
Go.
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
Go.
And actually, let's pick a recipe that means something.
Come in the house.
Let's see. It's going to be Abram, Jan, Chris, me, you. I would love to do that, and I would love to pick something that means something to someone, like the potato salad, right?
Oh, I love it.
And we can do more than one.
Love that.
Get a little baking series going on.
Let's get it. I love it.
Neeka, thank you so much for spending time with us.
It was my absolute, but I loved meeting you guys. I've heard your names. I'm so happy that I can be a part of this. I feel really, really blessed. Thank you.
Wonderful to meet you.
Likewise.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I love you, Neeka, and yes, we will all
baking and mimosas. Mwah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Neeka.
Love you
Bye.
guys. Bye.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that was a great episode. It was definitely out of our wheelhouse, but I love Neeka, and I think she's such a great storyteller and has such a heart. And we have a history, and we just got into a little bit of that. But I really wanted her to meet you guys, and for listeners to understand how important community is and their heartbeat. And so, Yeah.
What an incredible story she's got. I mean, this idea of helping people kind of reconnect with their personal family histories through, reliving, recreating these recipes. That's really incredible. I really love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and she's doing it in such a reverse direction. So, when you think of, like obviously you can think of shows like Chef's Table or something like that, or even, I'm a huge fan of, Jon Favreau's, not the chef show, but the documentary series where he goes around with people and they share, they cook for each other essentially, and like the film crews in and all that. But she's doing it in a reciprocal way where it's like, she's helping embellish other people's stories and recipes and helping finding and formulate that for an individual's life. And I think that's so unique. It's not just presenting it to people, it's helping them present it back to the world and themselves.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Nice job, Jan.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys liked her. And I'm glad we got to talk about Christmas and It's a Wonderful Life. And
Yes.
Can't wait to see it.
Yes. And just wanted to let everybody know how much we all love you. I know that it's the holidays. I know that you're probably visiting family, or some of you are probably alone, but just know that in my mind, we're all there with you and just hugging you and loving you and building community with you. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy
December.
Happy December. Yeah. And we hope you guys have a great holiday.
Absolutely. All right.
Merry
See y'all
Christmas,
in the new
everyone.
year.
Merry Christmas. See you in the new year. Yes. Heartbeat Film Podcast in the new year. Woo-woo.